This is the Jamboard practice assignment for 3-5, graphing linear equations in slope-intercept form. This is the second day that we are just reviewing graphing equations in slope-intercept form. So remember, slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. Where m equals your slope and b is your y-intercept. So that's going to be at the point 0 and whatever the b value is. So the steps for graphing, which are on the left, we first want to write the equation in slope-intercept form. So if needed, if it's not already solved for y, we'll need to solve the equation for y. Next, we want to graph the y-intercept. So we want to plot that point on the y-axis. And then from there, we're going to use the slope of the line to create more points. Remember, slope is rise over run. Next up is to just draw the line based on the points that we have graphed. So number 1 is already in slope-intercept form. The slope is -1, which we can also think of as -1 over 1, which will help us graph the slope. And the y-intercept is at +5. So we want to start with the y-intercept first, and then graph the slope. I'm going to use orange to show you my directions and how I'm getting from point to point, but the orange is not part of the line. So the slope is -1 over 1, so we can go down 1 to the right 1. Down 1 to the right. And we're going to keep doing this until we have plotted as many points that can fit on this coordinate plane. It's a little easier if you don't have to include the orange part and you just move your pencil down 1 unit and to the right 1 unit. Now we can also go up 1 and to the left 1 to create that last point on the top. There's our points that are on our line. So to graph the line, we're just going to connect and extend with arrows. Number 2, the slope is -3. So for the sake of directions, we want it -3 over 1. The y-intercept is -1. So that's where we're going to start, at -1 on the y-axis. And for the slope, we're going to move down 3 units to the right 1 unit. And make that point. Now I can't fit any more points below that, so I'm going to continue that pattern on the top half of the graph. And for that, I'm going to move up 3 to the left 1. 1 positive direction and 1 negative direction for a negative slope. Those are all the points that can fit on our line, so we're ready to graph our line with arrows. Remember, you can do a quick check to make sure that the sign of the slope of the line you graphed matches the sign of the slope in the equation. And to do that, you can use a little man on the far left side of the graph. Number 1 has a negative slope, so if I think about the little guy, you would fall. Same with number 2, little guy, he'd fall. For number 3, the slope of the line is 2 over 5. And the y-intercept is at +2. So let's start there, at the y-intercept. And the slope is 2 over 5, rise over run. So we're going to rise 2 and move horizontally 5 units to the right. Because it's a positive slope, we can also go down 2 units to the left 5 from the y-intercept. The equation has a positive slope, and the line we graphed has a positive slope. These last two problems are not currently in slope-intercept form, so we first need to solve the equations for y. We're always going to add or subtract the x term first. So for 12, it's positive 5x, so I'm going to subtract 5x from both sides. I want to write the x term first. It's negative y, so I'm going to divide all three terms by negative 1. So our slope is 5 over 1, and the y-intercept is 3. So start with the y-intercept, and then graph your slope. So we're going to go up 5 units into the right 1. We can also go down 5 and to the left 1 from the y-intercept. Looks like I can fit one more point. So that's all I can fit on this graph. So now I'm going to connect and extend. Last one. First, we're going to solve this equation for y. And again, first we're going to add or subtract the x term. It's positive 4x, so we're going to subtract 4x from both sides. And then divide all three terms by 3. So the equation in slope-intercept form is y equals negative 4/3 x plus 7, which makes the slope of the line negative 4 over 3, and it makes the y-intercept at 7. So we want to start at the y-intercept and make that point. And to get our next point, we're going to move down 4 units into the right 3 because it's a negative slope. Move down 4 to the right 3. And it looks like that's all I'm going to be able to fit on this specific coordinate plane. So I'm ready to graph my line. And there you have it. That was graphing linear equations in slope-intercept form. First, we want to make sure the equation is in slope-intercept form, meaning it's solved for y equals mx plus b. It helps to identify what the slope is and identify what the y-intercept is, especially as we're just learning how to do this. Then we want to graph where the y-intercept is, where that b value is, and then graph our next point by using our slope, rise over run, vertical change over horizontal change. Make sure the sign of the slope in the equation matches the sign of the slope that you graphed.